OK, so avant de commencer, je vais vous demander, j'ai vu des gens sur leur cellulaire là, pour la présentation. Donc, vous allez sortir votre cellulaire, le mettre sur Vibe ou Mute, puis après ça, le serrer sur. Je suis pas certain qu'il n'y a pas de Twitter. Ah non, vous autres, vous n'avez pas Twitter, c'est peut-être Snapchat, Location, sur Instagram. OK. Donc, aujourd'hui, non, peut-être quelqu'un d'autre qui lance. Donc, ça va sans dire, vous savez c'est quoi la valeur d'école numéro 1, c'est quoi? Respect. Donc, aujourd'hui, c'est une présentation que je tiens à cœur parce que ça va justement dans la veine de la première valeur qui est le respect. Donc, I'm going to switch over to English now because the presentation is going to be in English. I know we don't do many English presentations, but this one here is a pretty important one, so I figured that because it's not available in French, we're gonna do it in English. So I'm gonna read just the first paragraph. So Brock McGillis is a former OHL and professional hockey player. He's played professionally at both the United States and Europe level. He's currently studying communication and sports administration at Laurentian. Brock also works as a mentor and provides an off-ice training with elite-level hockey players in the city of Sudbury. Brock has a pretty important message to deliver us today. And before you start, I just want to excuse myself because I may have to go out in about 15, 20 minutes.
How's it going?
Good.
Je m'excuse, mais mon français c'est pas vraiment bon. So I think it'll be better if we do this in English. I'm gonna grab a chair because I feel like I'm standing over all of you and I'd rather be at your level. So my name's Brock McGillis. I was a hockey player. I played in the OHL in Windsor and the Sioux. I played professionally in the States and over in Europe. I played university hockey in Montreal. Now I work with a lot of athletes around here. And I'm also the first openly gay male professional hockey player. Who here knows somebody who identifies as a part of the LGBTQ community? You don't know anyone? No? Hey, I'm Brock. Who here has used homophobic language? That's gay, you're a fag, words like that. Okay, so 6 of you, wow. This is the most progressive school in the world. Okay, we're gonna try that again because I think some of you aren't really telling the truth. You're not going to get in trouble, and I'm gonna start. Who here has used homophobic language? Yeah, you were quick to put it up last time, so. I'm going to share my story with you and talk to you about how language impacted me and the effect it had on me in my life. And then I want to talk to all of you about language and about yourselves and what you can do to create a shift in society. I remember being 6 years old and I was watching a movie with my parents and there was a gay character. And I said, what if I'm gay? And they said, if you're gay, you're gay. You're Brock, we love you. And I'm pretty sure I went to my room and cried. And I sort of suppressed that. I always knew that, but I never really thought about it because I grew up like most stereotypical Canadians. I played hockey. And I grew up playing AAA hockey in the area here. I played with Mr. Boulanger against him for a long time. And I got pretty good at it. And I ended up going to the OHL. And when I got to the OHL, people thought I had this sweet life. And I acted like it. I was your typical cocky hockey boy. You know the type? What's that? Yeah? Yeah? Is there any here? Noah? But I thought I was so sweet. I would walk into a room like I owned the place. I thought I was God's gift to the world. I was a womanizer, I'm ashamed to admit today. I had a lot of girlfriends. But what people didn't know is I'd go home at night back to my billet's house. I would drop my friends off, I would drop girlfriend off or whoever, and I'd go home and I'd cry. I hated myself. I wanted to die, and on more than one occasion I tried to. And it was because I thought I couldn't be myself. I thought it was bad or wrong to be gay. And that was all due to the language I heard in locker rooms and language I heard at school. The words I heard on a daily basis, the words I used on a daily basis made me want to kill myself. And it's not that I was bullied. I was the cocky hockey guy. I walked around like I was so sweet. But they made me hate myself. And people didn't know I hid it. So by the time I was 18 years old, I started drinking heavily. I started drinking hoping that I could suppress and numb all my struggle and just not deal with it. I drank every day from the age of 18 till the age of 23. By the time I was 23, my career had gone not as I had planned. I went from being on the NHL draft list, I was supposed to be drafted, I was supposed to have a career at really high levels. I went from that to, I was still playing professional hockey, but I was playing in the minors in Europe. I was injured every season, and things weren't going the way they were supposed to. So finally at 23 years old, I sat myself down. And I thought, Brock, you need to figure this out. So I knew two things were going to happen. Number one, my hockey career was about to end. It was inevitable, it wasn't going well. And number two, I was probably going to end up dead. So when that season ended, I came back to Ontario and I went on a date with a man. And I actually ended up dating him for 3 years. Have any of you been in a 3-year relationship? None of you? Not even the teachers? Jeez. I'm gonna have to have a talk later to find out what's going on at this school. I end up in a 3-year relationship. And 3 years is a very long time, right? In your teens or early 20s. 3 years is even longer when nobody in your life knows. Because I thought, I was like, this is awesome, I figured it out, I've accepted I'm gay, and now my career's gonna get back on track, I'm gonna be happy, my life's gonna be great, and things are gonna go the way they're supposed to. But it got worse, because now I was closeted. Do any of you know what that means? Yeah, what's it mean?
Hiding it, so you're stuck in a closet.
Yeah, you're hiding your sexuality, you're basically in a closet, right? So I was hiding my sexuality from the world. Not one of my friends, not one of my family members, nobody met this person. Imagine having a friend nobody met in 3 years. Somebody you love. So I hit it and my career kept derailing and things got worse. As you can imagine, that relationship ended. And I decided to take a step back from professional hockey and focus more on my academics. So I moved to Montreal to go to university, and I decided to play hockey for the school. And one night I was watching a Leafs game on TV, and I saw this person being interviewed, this young guy. He was talking about following in his father's footsteps and becoming a GM in the NHL. And this person's name is Brendan Burke, and his father is Brian Burke. Does anyone know who Brian Burke is? You know? Who's Brian Burke?
Yeah, it was
Okay, yeah, but who is he? What does he do? He's a father, yes. You're listening. Brian Burke was, at the time, the GM. He ran the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then after that he went on to be the president of the Calgary Flames, and now he works for Sportsnet and does media. And his son Brendan was talking about following his dad's footsteps, but there was something a little different about this interview, and Brendan came out as gay. And I was barely paying attention in the interview, and then I saw this and my ears perked up because I'd never seen anyone talk about being gay in hockey. It just never happened. So after that interview aired, I reached out to Brendan, and the hockey world's a pretty small place, so it was easy to get in contact with him, and we started talking. And we actually became really good friends, and it was such a relief. I finally felt like I had somebody in my life who understood what it was like to be me. What it was like to be this hockey bro, hyper masculine, macho hockey guy, and also be gay. I finally had somebody I could talk to about my breakup that just happened. Because it's one thing to date somebody for 3 years with nobody knowing. It's another thing to go through a breakup and you're miserable and you're sad because you missed this first person I ever loved, and I can't tell anyone about it. So people are wondering why I'm sad or why I'm grumpy, and I can't tell them. So I finally had somebody to talk to about that. And I think for Brendan it was nice because he had somebody who understood what he was going through, and he was thrust in the media spotlight, and he had somebody he could talk to about it that understood being in the hockey world and being gay. So Brendan and I spoke almost every day. And then one day he sent me a message that was unlike any other message I'd received in my life. It just said, "I can't wait for the day that you're out to your family like I am to mine." And I panicked. I didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to do, I just didn't answer. I looked at my phone and just threw it across the room. Because I couldn't grasp the idea, I couldn't handle the idea of coming up to my family. And I knew my family would be totally cool with it. They'd been cool since I was 6 years old. But I was worried because my family was so involved in hockey. My dad coached AAA and junior hockey for over 30 years. My brother was a first-round pick in the OHL, played professionally. He's a 6'2", 210-pound power forward who fought and scored goals. And I was afraid that they would hear the language used in the locker rooms and stand up for me. They would say, "You can't say that because Brock's gay." And then they'd out me, and it would jeopardize my chances of making it in hockey. So I couldn't fathom the idea of answering this message or going to do what he said I should do. So I didn't answer it. Those ended up being the last words Brendan ever said to me. 2 days later, he died in a car accident. So now I'm sitting there, I'm in Montreal, and I'm going through a breakup. First person I've loved. And now my only friend, who knows everything, dies. And I never felt so alone in my life. I knew at that point I had to come out. So, a few days later, I sat my brother down. I said, Corey, I'm gay. And he said, yeah, so? I was like, oh, that's it, really? It's like, he's like, you're Brock, I love you. And then I began to tell family and some of my close friends. I told close friends who weren't in hockey. So I was still afraid to tell my hockey friends. And I went on to play hockey a little longer, and then I retired. And even after I retired, I didn't tell any of my hockey friends because I started working with hockey players in the area, in the Sudbury area. I worked with actually a few players from the Valley, like Damien Giroux, I'm sure some of you know who that is, or Brad Chenier, people like that. What's that?
He's my neighbor.
Is he? I'm so sorry. So I started working with players. Isn't he your neighbor too? Oh, you moved? Okay. I don't blame you. So I started working with players, and I worked with about 100 hockey players in the area, and I was afraid that if their parents knew I was gay, they wouldn't want them to train with me. Because there's not a lot of exposure to the LGBTQ plus community up here, so I just thought that, well, they wouldn't want their kids working with the gay guy. So I hid it. I hid it for years, probably 3 or 4 years. And then I received a phone call one day from a hockey mom. And I get about 100 phone calls or text messages a day from hockey parents. And hockey parents are unique. They're an interesting breed. But this message was a little different. I had a hockey mom call me and she said, Brock, I want to set you up on a date. I was like, oh no, what am I going to tell her? What am I going to say? How am I going to get out of this? And I was like, oh, whatever. What's her name? She said, Steve. And I said, what? She said, his name's Steve. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, Brock, you're gay. and now I'm like so shocked and confused and a little scared. I'm like, what? And she's getting impatient on the phone and a little annoyed. She's like, you're gay, Brock, you're so gay. I'm like, how do you know that? And she's like, oh, my son told me. And her son was 15 at the time. This was 2 years ago. Her son was 15 at the time, so he'd be in grade 12 now, I guess. And she's like, my son told me. He's known for years. All the boys know. I thought, what? And then I start panicking. My heart starts racing. I start sweating. I'm still on the phone with this woman, and it's dead silence. And I'm like, oh my God, like all my athletes know I'm gay. What am I going to do? They're not going to want to work with me. I'm going to lose all my clients. And what am I going to do for work? And I'm panicked. I'm freaking out. And it's still dead silence. It had to be like 10 minutes. And then I thought, wait, all these cocky hockey boys who think they're God's gift to the world, who walk into rooms like they own the place, like your neighbor, know I'm gay. And they choose to work with me. How cool is that? So I thought at that point, okay, maybe I should come out. Maybe I should tell them and just, just make it official since they all know anyway. I thought, no, you know what? Maybe I should do a little experiment. I decided to do a little sociology experiment. Because they know I'm gay, but they don't know that I know that they know that I'm gay. So I started observing their behaviors and watching them. Kind of like my test project. And I would notice I always tried to curb sexist, racist, or homophobic language with my athletes. But I started to notice that anytime they'd say something homophobic, they would freeze up right away. They'd look at me and be like, sorry, Brock, sorry. And I would just nod and be like, it's cool. And I thought, after a while of noticing this, well, maybe I'm creating a shift. Maybe, the hockey world's this big bubble, and hockey people tend to hang out with other hockey people, and it's like this insular world. And we have this little bubble within this big bubble. I thought, well, maybe I'm creating a shift. Maybe these players know, like they're changing their thoughts and their views and their language because of me, and how cool is that? And I thought, or maybe they just like me and I'm gay, so they're nice to me and apologizing, but they go to school and call kids fags every day. And I really didn't know. Till one day, I got a phone call from, I have a sprint coach that works with my athletes. And he told me what happened that day. They were on the track, and it was the end of like a 2-hour workout. And one of my younger players, or the sprint coach looked at my athletes and said, you have 10 more 200-meter sprints, or something stupid like that. And one of my younger players, who comes from a very progressive household, looked at him and said, this is so gay, I can't believe you're making us do this. And one of my older players, who'd been in the OHL and had been in the hockey world longer and heard that language longer, it's actually Brad, looked at the younger player and said, we don't say that here, give me 50 push-ups. And the younger kid, and this younger kid came from a super progressive background. His mom's one of my good friends. Growing up, the F word he couldn't say was fag. His dad gives me a hug every time he sees me. The younger kid said, yeah, you know what, you're right. I need to do 50 push-ups on the spot. And it was kind of a way, and it's something my athletes have adopted as a way to remind themselves when they, because they hear these words all the time, to, oh, I shouldn't say that. That's going to hurt someone. And they've actually taken it, the younger guy took it then to his group of friends at school and to his hockey team. Actually, one of his teammates, who I'd never met, was FaceTiming a woman one night, a young woman, and they're on FaceTime, and she said, let's hang out tonight. And he said, no, I can't, I have practice. And she looked at him and said, that's so gay. And he looked at her and said, give me 50 push-ups right now or I'm never going. And this 15-year-old woman got out and down and did 50 push-ups on FaceTime. And I thought, how cool is that, though, that like this is spreading and it's creating a shift, and it's not just now our little bubble in the hockey world, it's bigger. And it can keep getting bigger. And I probably should have came out right then and there. That was probably the time where I should have just came forward, came out to my athletes, came out publicly. But I didn't. I was afraid. I grew up where it wasn't okay to be gay. I grew up in a time where in locker rooms we used it nonstop, that language, and that's how we chirped each other. And I didn't know how I would be accepted by society, being in hockey and being gay. But a few things gave me the kick in the butt I needed to kind of come out. Locally, an entire hockey association alienated me and sort of blackballed my business. They wouldn't let me work with athletes in an association I grew up playing in. And it was after they had heard that I was gay. They never gave me a reason why. I went from working with all the teams and coaching and everything else to, you're not allowed. And then my dad was at a meeting with the association, and he said, is it because Brock's gay? And 2 days later, a few different staffs I was coaching on, head coaches kicked me off their staffs. And it really sucked that these people that I considered my friends pushed me away just because of my sexuality. As that season ended, a few other things happened too. This was 2016. Did any of you hear about the shooting in Orlando that summer?
Yes.
Yeah? What happened?
There was like I forgot what it was, but I know there was a guy who came in, he had anger towards gays, lesbians in general, and shot the place up.
Yeah, so a guy went into a gay bar and shot it up. He murdered 49 people just for being gay. And for my community, the LGBTQ plus community, a gay bar is a safe space. And what I mean by a safe space is you can go there and just be yourself. You're not worried about judgment, you're not worried about ridicule, you're not worried about being beaten up. You can just be you. Because the reality is, let's say two men were walking down a street in the valley holding hands. Okay. Do you think they'd be called names by people in cars? Yeah. And this isn't just a valley thing. This, you go into Sudbury, go to Toronto, it still happens. Name the place. And we're in Canada, which is supposed to be an inclusive country. You know, two men holding hands would be called names. Two women kissing might be called names. Two men might get beaten up, they'd be threatened, things would happen. So these gay bars are places where they can go and hold their partner's hand, love who they want to love, without being called names for it. And somebody went in and took that away from us. And this wasn't somewhere, you know, like, this was our neighbor in the States. This easily could have been me and my friends in Toronto. It wasn't somewhere across the world. Like, I had somebody, I believe it was in Bangladesh, reach out to me about 6 months or a year ago. And his best friend started the first LGBT newsletter over there, and he was found and decapitated just for starting a newsletter. But this wasn't there. This is like North America, where we're inclusive and diverse and allowed to be ourselves. And that happened. So it really, I'm not gonna lie, it pissed me off. It pissed me off that people took those rights away from my community. Because not everyone, like, I present as a masculine guy, I'm a hockey bro. So I can walk around everywhere and not worry about that. I have friends who walk down the street and get called names. I have a friend who was in Finland a week ago for work, and he got jumped on a street because he was too gay. And it really pissed me off. And then the final thing that pushed me to come out was, so the Pulse incident happened on a Saturday night. The following Wednesday, I got a call from one of my best friends, and at the time he was running Toronto Pride. And Toronto Pride is one of, if not the largest, LGBT organizations in the world. And we were supposed to go to, the upcoming Friday, go to a charity event that he was running. So he calls me on Wednesday and he says, "Brock, I don't think you should come." I was like, well, that's kind of mean. I really wanted to go. And he's like, well, I just got a call from the RCMP and I'm on an ISIS hit list. I said, no, you're not. You're lying to me. Shut up. He's like, no, I'm on an ISIS hit list and they have a picture of me. And they think I might get targeted at that event. I said, well, are you going? He said, yeah, I have to be there. I said, well, I'm coming with you. So I went to Toronto that Friday. That Friday night we got into an Uber and we looked at each other and you could just, no words had to be spoken, but we just both thought we were gonna die. And we get to this event, and I've never been to a charity event where they're patting you down and they have, you know, those wands at airports and stuff where they're like metal detectors. They have the wands out to make sure people don't have guns on them and stuff. And the entire night we had undercover police and RCMP officers all around us. And luckily nothing happened, and my friend is fine today, but I didn't think I was gonna make it out of that alive. And the fear I felt and the anger I felt in that moment told me that I had to do something. So the following day I reached out to a friend of mine. She was working for Yahoo Sports at the time. Now she's with another publication, I think it's The Athletic. And I told her, I said, listen, I'm coming out and I want to do a story coming out. She's like, all right, let's do it. So I wrote an article for Yahoo Sports coming out publicly. It was about